And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Carlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I can tell you, I'm really stoked after that Mets win. I mean, that game, I was like, that ninth inning, I was like, oh no, bro! And it's like, all of a sudden, it's like Lindor got that home run, and I just nearly jumped up off my seat. I felt like I almost fell and hit the TV during that Lindor home run. And then all of a sudden, we just scored enough runs, and we all of a sudden we managed to win this game. When going to be the worst loss of the season.
That's right. I mean, it was definitely a weird game. The Mets getting no hit through 8 innings. I mean, heading into the ninth inning, especially with the way the eighth felt, just didn't feel like it was going to end well. But Lindor put a stop to that. But we'll get to that in a second, real quick, before we continue on with our regular show, like we always do. I do want to start the show and have a little memory here for a second because it is September 11th. For New Yorkers like myself and Bo, um, you know, this is a day that touches home and hits really hard. Even 23 years later, when you think back to the day of September 11th, 2001. So, Dan, I figured that at the top of the show, we're actually recording it for the first time since we've been doing the show on September 11th. So, definitely wanted to just, have a little bit of memory for a day that, just much like December 7th, 1941, September 11th, 2001 is a day that will live in infamy for the history of the United States.
Exactly. A couple of things I got to say about that day. I I was like I found out I was helping out a friend of the family who was running for elected office at the time. Right, it was a primary day, so where some by like not like couple of short walk for the polling site. Right, I heard on a police from a police radio on a from a police officer near a police car. Right, I heard the I guess the police radio I guess the mentioning it to all the officers had what had happened, that a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center, and it was like concerned, and made and there was someone there with me also that was part of the campaign, but heard that because he knew someone who was working in the building, so he was like worried. So we went into my house, right, the living room. My mom had the TV on, and we saw the news coverage. I saw that on the news when that happened. And also when I went a bunch of years later, I went to that 9/11 memorial. One of the exhibits, you hear the police radio audio, and that hit home because that hearing that from a police from the radio police officer was how I got informed of what happened.
Yeah, man, it's a crazy day. For me, I was in ninth grade, in school that day, first week of school, really, for the most part, first week of high school. And yeah, I was taking a math test when everybody when they made the announcement over the speakers and everything. Um, you know, Obviously, crazy day. My dad was a court officer, was almost called into the city, but luckily that got the kibosh put on it, so he didn't go out there. My mom was working at Brooklyn that day, out in I believe Brooklyn Supreme Court. So obviously there was a lot of craziness going on there. And my uncle was a first responder to the World Trade Center that day as well, and thank God he ended up making it out alive. But he's still dealing with those health effects, all these years later. So,
A
what's that, Dan?
friend of ours, there's a family friend, there's a police officer that my mom that still that was a
Yeah,
police officer.
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit there, but yeah, it's true, man. This is a day that unfortunately will be one of the worst days in the history of this country. We just got to make sure that people don't forget it and remember the tragedy of September 11th and everything that happened on that day and the heroes that saved so many as they could, even if they ended up losing their own lives in the process. So, uh, absolute nothing but love to the FDNY, the NYPD, and all the first responders there, right, Dan?
Their heroic efforts are gonna never gonna be forgotten. And of course, I also need to remember the recovery process when all of us were trying to get trying to heal from having dealt with what all of us saw happen, and somehow we knew if you didn't have any friends or relatives that got hit by that, you knew someone who did, who was dealing with that. And I just remember the emotion from that first baseball game, that first Mets home game after September 11th, that happened on September 21st. Yours truly was at that game, and
Very nice. Very nice. One of the all-time great Met games there against the Braves.
felt like look, when that moment happened, like I still remember how loud what it sounded like, what Shea sounded like when that moment happened. I was sitting somewhere on the third base side, I think somewhere in the orange seats in the third base side, that ballpark, and I still remember what it sounded like when it happened.
I wasn't even there, and I remember it too. I still remember that sound. So yes, absolutely. Wanted to kick the show off with that because it seems a lot of places have been forgetting what an important day September 11th is, and right here on the Best Seat in the House podcast, we didn't. So thank you, and thank you to the Mets too for wearing the first responders hats and everything today, and Francisco Lindor, who we're going to talk about right now, as the Mets ended up beating the Blue Jays 6-2 up in Toronto. Francisco Lindor, man, I cannot say enough good things about Lindor. Look, there have been times over the last 2 or 3 years, and for the most part, I always tried to be very complimentary of Lindor. But there were times, especially earlier this year when things were going pretty bad, that I criticized Lindor, and I thought he deserved it at the time. And but you know what? I gotta say, Francisco Lindor has become over the last few months, ever since mid to late May, everything you could have possibly wanted and more for the guy the Mets traded for back in January of 2021, Dan. This is a guy that is not only a leader and he's setting an example in the clubhouse, both on the field and off the field. This is a guy that goes out there and just shows everybody exactly the perfect way to go about it. Even speaking after the game with the reporters like Steve Gelbs and everything, him talking about what it meant to do to have that moment on 9/11, which we'll talk about right now. It just shows that Francisco Lindor, and he's probably not going to win the MVP, as me and you talked about. Obviously, look, Shohei Ohtani is having an insane season, but that doesn't take away from everything Francisco Lindor has done this year to really grow into that role that the Mets have desperately needed him to take over the last couple of years, right, Dan?
He's really finally showing that his worth, and I just have to say that was it. I keep joking around because my mom loves that movie Elf. I keep quoting that scene. You know that scene when he's like laughing, like Francisco. You know that scene in Elf.
Francisco. That's a fun name to say.
Yeah, I keep quoting that because my mom loves that movie, so it's got to the point that movie's got ingrained in my head, especially around Christmas time. That movie's gonna be ingrained in my head.
Of course, that's one of the all-time greats too. I love that movie Elf. But Dan, let's take a look at this right now because it was just so fun to sit back and watch Lindor just, become the player. And he's been doing this for months now. But this, and let's just set the stage, everybody. So the Mets were facing the Toronto Blue Jays today in the final game of a 3-game set. They ended up splitting the first 2 games with them. The Mets won the first game, relatively not too much going on in that game. They ended up losing the second game. Now, through those first 2 games and through the first 8 innings of today, there were no home runs hit in this series at all. It was a very well-pitched, low scoring series. And then it got taken to even the next level today as the Mets trailed 1-0 heading into the 9th inning. But it wasn't just any 1-0 score. The Mets were getting no hit by Bowden Francis, the starting pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays today. And the way that the 8th inning ended, or went in total, where it really, the starting pitcher only threw about 5 or 6 pitches, got out of Dodge. I could not believe how quickly the Mets went down in that 8th inning, and I was very annoyed by it. And then you just see Francisco Lindor coming up to lead off the 9th inning, and you just had a feeling that something good was going to happen. And I don't know why this isn't playing right now. Let me see. All right, I'll have to remove that and re-add it. But yeah, I mean, when you see, hold on, let's see. All right here, okay.
To end it. That's driven to deep right field, and a home run ends this no-hit bid. Linsanity! Francisco Lindor ties the game with a 9th inning home run. As big a hit as the Mets have had all season. Francisco Lindor breaks up the no-hit bid and the shutout, and he ties the game with his 31st home run of the year, and it's 1-1 in the 9th.
I mean, Dan, what an incredible bomb that was he hit. And he said he knew it. He got it right off the bat.
Yeah, but just hard to believe that, how crazy that would have been a story if we're doing this show and I'm in the emergency room because if I had injured myself, because I fell when I jumped out of my seat. I took a good fall, and somehow I didn't get. I took a good fall. Like, remember that little video I showed you, like real life versus the commercials, and a guy's like falling and stuff. Like, oh no, that's what it looked. Literally, what it looked like when I'm jumping. When I jumped, when I just went nuts after that. And somehow I almost broke the TV. Luckily, the TV didn't break, because that would have been bye-bye playoff tickets if I had to replace the TV.
Yeah, that you got that right. So luckily you dodged that bullet. Luckily the Mets dodged a big bullet getting the W out there today. And a big reason for that was, and I thought it was a pure class move by Sean Manaea, who, by the way, he threw a gem today, 6 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, walked a couple of guys more than he's done, a lot lately, 4 walks, struck out 8. But I thought the class move was Bowden Francis, the Toronto Blue Jays starting pitcher, that gave up the home run to lead off the 9th inning and cost himself the no-hitter and the win simultaneously, unfortunately for him, luckily for us. But Sean Manaea gave him, he took his hat off and made a gesture to the kid for, pretty much saying, hey, you pitched your ass off, great game. And I don't know if you saw that, Dan, but I thought that was a really good move by Sean Manaea.
Oh, that big figures being the fact that they're in the same city. It was in the same city as the Hockey Hall of Fame that they did what might be the equivalent of a hockey handshake.
To a certain extent, that's not a bad call. You're right about that. As a lot of sportsmanship on display there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, great job by Sean Manaea, not only with his sportsmanship but on the mound today. Once again, the guy's pitching into the 7th inning, only a scattering 3 hits and striking out 8. So he continues to pitch like an ace. Really big fan of what Sean Manaea has provided to the Mets this year. And then the blast that opened things up, the Mets had opened up a 3-1 lead. It was a solo shot by Lindor to tie it. The Mets ended up loading the bases, and Pete Alonso got a sac fly. They'd cash in one more, and then we were welcomed to another great sign.
Is the 8th man up in the inning, 2 out and 2 on. And Alvarez slams one to deep center field. Varsho back, takes a look, and it's out of here. Francisco Alvarez brings the hammer down with a 3-run homer. Alvarez on the first pitch thrown by Cabrera.
By that, Dan. I mean, when you saw that home run, I hope you didn't fall out of your seat for that one.
Oh, I was still just collecting myself because you know how when if I don't know if you've ever had in a fall like that, like you've had like a big fall and somehow you make it out of that fall unscathed, but you still have that shock from the fall. That's what I kind of had still. Like I'm still feeling that shock from the fall.
Well, I'm sure that this helped you shake that shock off just a little bit, as the Mets ended up putting up a 6 spot in the top of the 9th inning. And you know what was even more beautiful about this game, Dan, too, is that, we mentioned the Mets had split the first 2 games of the series. So this was a really big game. This could be, I think this was actually the Mets' 7th consecutive series victory. So it's been a long time since they have not won a series. And as a matter of fact, the Mets have been better than anybody in baseball this year in picking up the win in the rubber game, which, as we've mentioned on the show before in the past, the rubber game is in a 3-game set in Major League Baseball. If you split the first 2, the rubber game is the 3rd game because that decides who wins the series. The Mets now are 9-3 in rubber games this year, best in Major League Baseball. And you know what, man? I got to give a lot of credit to manager Carlos Mendoza. I've been up and down on the guy this year. I was not blown away with them hiring him in the first place from the Yankees as their bench coach. He came in as the Mets manager this season. First time he's ever managed a team professionally. And I got to say, the guy has really grown into this role, a lot like Francisco Lindor growing into that, the leader and the player that he is today. That's a legitimate MVP candidate. Right now you have to give it to, Carlos Mendoza. He's got a feel for this team. One of the things that I really enjoyed after the game, Andy Martino brought up that, because I did find it interesting that Alvarez was still in the game today in the 9th inning, especially the day game after a night game. So, because the Mets have really made it a point that a day game after a night game, most times you're going to see Luis Torrens, the Mets backup catcher. But they had Alvarez in there. And Mendoza's reasoning for that was, well, they have off tomorrow, so I didn't want him to have off back-to-back days. And he noticed that Alvarez has been really, really close with his swing. He noticed that Alvarez was, just a little bit off, and that there's a chance in the next couple of days he's going to get hot. And I don't know if this is going to continue, but he at least was right about this one. And you got to give Mendoza credit, because I feel like a lot of people would have had the backup catcher in today,
Yeah, exactly. I have to give credit. Plus that I kind of knew maybe was not bad an idea. It's an off day tomorrow. So it's not like
exactly.
And it was a great decision. And he's been and hopefully this is finally a thing to come to. He's finally starting to become the hitter we expected. Because I saw this guy when he was in the minor leagues, when he was in the Brooklyn Cyclones, and this guy was hitting bombs there.
Oh, yeah. And let's be fair. He hit bombs last year, too. The guy hit 25 home runs. So it's not like he hasn't done nothing at the major league level. I feel like this year he is focusing on a whole bunch of different portions of the game. We all know how strong Francisco Alvarez is. Eventually, the power is going to show up. I feel like last year his batting average wasn't there. He was hitting like 210 or whatever, but he hit 25 home runs, so nobody really cared. This year, his batting average is a lot better, but the power hasn't been there. But he's really been developing the rest of his game. So I feel like as much as Lindor has struggled in a lot of ways offensively this year, he's just figuring it out. The kid is still 22 years old, and eventually he's going to put it together for a full season, right, Dan?
Yeah, I just like eventually that's gonna happen, and it's finally showing.
Yeah,
Got to give a lot of credit to everyone in the Mets, everyone on the staff that's maybe been there along the way to get him to where to where he is now. And I just have a feeling the Mets make the playoffs. Look out, this guy could be having a monster playoffs. Could be going on a Daniel Murphy type run right here. And if that happens, replay this right here, what I said right now, because I just have a gut feeling Francisco Alvarez could be the Daniel Murphy type run in the playoffs if the Mets make it.
could be. He's not a bad guess, man. That's a as good a guess as you can get. What are you gonna say
About this game? Remember, I said in a text, I said, "Yeah, if the Mets win this." I said on Twitter, I said, "If the Mets win this game, there's gonna after Francisco Lindor tied it." I got up. I said, "The Mets win this game." I have a weird feeling that this game will be rerun on SNY a lot during the winter.
Yeah, this definitely has a feel to be one of those games, especially if the Mets end up making the playoffs, and I guess even if they don't. So yeah, you're definitely right about that. And hey, there's definitely a shot for the playoffs right now, Dan. As we're looking at it right now, the Mets are right in the thick of things, 80 and 66 with the win today. They've gone back up to 14 games over 500, which is their season high watermark for the year. So if they beat the Phillies on Friday, they'll be 15 over for the first time this season. They're still in a virtual tie with the Braves, and I only say virtual tie because right now the Mets are technically a half game ahead of the Braves, but the Braves make that game up tonight, which is actually just underway right now in Atlanta. So, oh no, sorry, in DC between the Braves and the Nationals. No score yet. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that the Nationals can steal one and put the Mets back up on top of that. But the Diamondbacks went out there and blew out the I forget who they were playing, but whoever they played today, they blew them out. And now the Padres play the final game of their series tonight against the Seattle Mariners. So, a chance to pick up some ground there. Obviously, they're not gaining any ground on the D-backs right now, but, the Mets are right there with the Braves, and the Mets are a legitimate postseason contender right now, obviously, with just a handful of games left to go.
Going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of medics on standby the rest of September. I can tell you that. It's out of September.
You're definitely right about that, Dan.
Out of September like this, and it's just going to be a lot of nothing. I'm actually going to have to exercise that free trial option on the Apple TV. I don't have a subscription to Apple TV, but I still have this thing. I've never, there's free trial, right? 1 month free trial. I said if the Mets were in contention in September and there was going to be a game that was going to be broadcasted on Apple TV, I was going to do the one free month just to watch that game. And that's exactly what's happening.
Always the strategist, Daniel Bobo Curlin, one move ahead of Apple TV, right?
Yeah, because I was not going to miss a single game during September. I did not want to miss a single game during September, and I had to. I said, I'm waiting like the day of the game. I'm going to do the free option, just to watch that free month, just to watch this game during the playoff mode. I think it's next weekend, but
Yeah.
I'll watch this game. Debating whether to do that next weekend, or maybe even buy a ticket to the game. One of the two I'm going to do.
Exactly. And just to wrap up on the Mets here, obviously, Dan was talking about not wanting to miss a game in September. Well, this guy has unfortunately missed most of the games in September so far. Is Paul Blackburn still feeling discomfort? He's questionable. He was supposed to start on Monday in Toronto, but he got scratched late. They're saying there's a chance he could pitch this weekend in Philadelphia, but I wouldn't keep my fingers crossed. Not really sure. about him. And now when they turn their attention to Friday now, Dan, it's a pretty good pitching matchup as Jose Quintana has been pretty consistent for the Mets this year, 8-9, 4.09 ERA, going against Aaron Nola, who obviously we all know Aaron Nola, such a great pitcher for the Phillies, 12-7, 3.41 ERA. So, it's not going to be an easy task on Friday going into Philly, right?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I encourage anyone attending that. I encourage as many people as possible that's attending the series this weekend. If you're using public transportation to go to that stadium in Philadelphia, as soon as you walk out of the subway, take your phone and have that song OMG blasting as soon as you're during the walk from the Philadelphia subway subway station in Philadelphia, the walk close to the stadium to the stadium. For those of you who have been there, when you get off the train, you walk a little. You have to walk a little bit but it's a very short. But here in New York, the subway station is near the stadium. So you walk there. That walk from the train station to the stadium, blast that song as, as you're entering Citizens Bank Ballpark. If you're a Mets fan, I encourage all Met fans to do the road. Have that song blasting on their phones.
That's right. As a shout out to Jose Iglesias.
Exactly. You really fuck with those Phillies.
That's right. That's right. And so obviously we got the Mets and the Phillies, a big heated rivalry this weekend. Now the Yankees are going to be welcoming the Red Sox in a second this weekend, which we're going to be talking about in a minute. But right now the Yankees are reheating an old 1970s and early 80s rivalry against the Kansas City Royals. If you remember, these two teams battled it out in the late 70s and the early 80s. And right now, the Kansas City Royals, they split. Danny, what's up?
Those two, you definitely got to mention the infamous Pine Tar game.
Well, yeah, that was a couple of years later, but very true. Very true. The infamous Pine Tar game. But yeah, so, I mean, when you look at what's it called? Where is it? Right here. When you look at the standings, the Yankees and the Royals are pretty much right there. The Royals have had such a big turnaround this year for their team, so it's definitely been a big lift for them. And to hang with the Yankees these first two games has been pretty big. They got blown out the first game, but shut them out last night 5-0. And then you turn your attention to tonight as the Yankees look to keep their decent streak going lately of winning series, and they're going against Reagan's from Kansas City, who's 11-9, 3.33 ERAs, had a good year, going against Gill for the Yankees, 13-6, 3.24. These are two young kids that have had really good years for their two teams, and when you look at it, the Yankees can't take the Royals lightly because they're only a half game up, as we see right now, on the Baltimore Orioles for first place in the American League East. So you can't just go into this game even and thinking that you're going to get an easy one on the Kansas City Royals, even at Yankee Stadium, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. And when I look at this game, I feel like either one of these two teams could win 3-1 on a score of 3-1. Either one of them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you would expect both these guys to come out tonight and be pitching pretty well for their respective teams. And as they, one thing that would contribute, though, to that 3-1 game and some tough offensive numbers going around for Toronto and the Yankees right now. I'm sorry, not Toronto. The Mets are playing Toronto for Kansas City and the Yankees right now, is Aaron Judge. And Aaron Judge has actually struggled. Now, look, Aaron Judge had a rough April, but really ever since, I believe, around April 27th, Aaron Judge has been red hot and the best hitter in baseball, bar none. So, this guy's got 51 home runs and a 320 batting average, so you can't really knock much about what Aaron Judge has done. However, over the last 15 games, he's finally started to cool off a little bit. That might scare Yankee fans a little bit if you look at his career playoff numbers. So they're hoping it doesn't extend into October. But Aaron Judge right now, over his last 15 games, 218, 2 home runs, and 7 RBIs. That's not going to get it done for the Yankees, Dan. If Judge is going to do, well, let's be honest. If the Yankees are going to do anything, Aaron Judge has to be hitting the ball.
Yeah, exactly. He has to be hitting the ball. Aaron Judge has to be hitting the ball. He has to get out of this streak right now. I don't know what he needs to do. If he needs to do some Jabu ritual. Does he need to sacrifice a live chicken? But he needs to do something to get back hot.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, hey, I don't know if it's sacrificing a live chicken time yet. Maybe if this goes on for another week or two, Yankee fans will be at that point. But hey, it's Judge definitely is going to have to get going. But one thing I did want to give the Yankees a little credit for is that I've criticized the Yankees lineup a lot this year with how thin it was, especially above and below Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. But the Yankees lineup looks much deeper now ever since they obviously traded for Jazz Chisholm Jr. and then re-adding Anthony Rizzo to the lineup, because now listen to this lineup, and it's not too bad when you hear the guys in there. Every one of these guys is a verifiable, major league player, not one of these minor league stiffs the Yankees have been running out there for a lot of this year. So this is the Yankees lineup tonight, as a matter of fact. Gleyber Torres, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge. That's a good 1, 2, 3. Then after that, Jazz Chisholm, Giancarlo Stanton, and Alex Verdugo. Once again, not too bad. In the bottom third of their lineup is Anthony Volpe, Anthony Rizzo, and Jose Trevino. So, when everything you look at the Yankees lineup from this whole year with how badly they've struggled at times, when you see those guys' names in the lineup now in September getting ready for the playoffs, if the Yankees can pencil that lineup in October most nights, I'd feel pretty good about my chances if I were the Yankees.
Yeah, exactly. You feel a pretty good chance. I feel like it could be a team that could either win the whole thing or lose in the first or second round.
Yes, that's definitely true. I definitely agree with you on that. And we're going to see a couple of other teams now where the Yankees are going to have to be going through these teams. So obviously the Orioles are right there at the Yankees, and they're playing the Red Sox tonight. They got the final game of their series tonight with the rubber game for them going on after they split the first two. But things aren't going to get any easier for the Red Sox, at least, as the Sox are coming to Yankee Stadium for 4 starting tomorrow night, Thursday, if you're watching this tonight, at Yankee Stadium. So it's definitely going to be a big test. The emotions are always high, no matter what's going on with the Yankees and the Red Sox, no matter where they are in the standings. And while the Yankees are, at the top where they usually are, the Red Sox aren't exactly buried either. So they still have a pulse in the race. So you got to give them credit for that. And if you're a Yankee fan too, one thing that's definitely got to be a positive thing for them is that Nestor Cortes, who Yankee fans really fell in love with last year, and he's had a really up and down season to this point so far. He's rejoining the rotation tomorrow against the Red Sox after coming out of the bullpen for extended duty late last week, where he threw, I believe it was like 4 1/3 innings out of the pen or so and got the win. So, if the Yankees can have Nestor Cortes, we all know one of the secrets to the Yankees is having good left-handed starting pitching. And, you can look all through the Yankees history, obviously, going to Guidry, going to Whitey Ford, going to Andy Pettitte, so on and so forth. You can go down the list, CC Sabathia, all these guys over the years for the Yankees that have made it in Yankee Stadium having a big lefty. And Nestor Cortes, if they could get him back on track, that's going to be a big step in the right direction for the Yankees, right, Dan?
That could be a big thing for them. The other thing you got to, there could be a little rust out there, and that can be a little bit nervous for Yankee fans at this time of year when you got a player that's coming back from an injury, having to go through that whole thing of coming back for the injury, the whole thing of playing with a lot
Well,
on
he's really not coming back from an injury, though. He kind of was just coming back from getting demoted to the bullpen.
yeah. Well, it's still going to be like with a lot coming back into the rotation with a lot on the line.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. All the poker chips are to the middle of the table right now, Dan. We're at that point in the year. So big things coming ahead for the Yankees and the Mets over the next couple of weeks. The playoffs are starting at the end of the month. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we got 2 New York teams in it this year after none last year. So let's see if we can flip the script this year. Speaking of flip the script, we got football going right now too, Dan, as this weekend was the kickoff of the NFL 2024 season. So many great games on the slate. Unfortunately, not either one of our teams played one of those great games. As we'll start off with your New York Football Giants, Dan, as the Giants kicked off the NFL season at home against the Minnesota Vikings and took a tough 28-6 loss. Look, if you want to hear our in-depth coverage of it, you could check us out on Patreon, Best Seat in the House podcast, where we did our New York Giants and New York Jets post-game shows for each game. But, Dan, what do you think coming off a tough 28-6 loss to the Vikings to start the season?
It was just unacceptable. Daniel Jones really is starting to show that he is one of the biggest busts in Giants history. There was literally no offense. This team doesn't have a real quarterback. I saw signs the defense was there. I saw that, but it was just not good. We were out of the game by the first half. By the end of the first half, I just wish that was a 60 minutes of football that I wish I could have had back when I saw that game.
Yeah. As a Giants fan, I don't blame you one bit for feeling that way. I love how you did give a little bit of credit to the Giants defense, because let's be fair, they gave up 28 points, but 7 of those points was a pick 6 that Daniel Jones threw, and really the offense did not help them out at all. So you can't really get on the Giants defense too bad. Obviously, they have a couple of really good players in Kevon Thibodeau, who, by the way, is saying a couple of weird things this weekend that, that make you a little uneasy. This guy had some personality problems in college. You're hoping that's not coming out as a Giant, as he didn't answer questions exactly the way you'd want to in postgame when they were criticizing his play. So, hopefully that was just a blip on the radar, and that's not a big deal. But I do want to give a lot of credit to Brian Okereke, who looks awesome for the Giants. And then, in my opinion, the guy who was the best player on the field for the New York Giants this weekend, and that's defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence. In your opinion, Dan, what impact does this guy have in the Giants defense?
Guy he has a big impact. I feel like he's one of the greatest. He's up there with some of the great defensive players in Giants history if he keeps this up.
Yeah, he's definitely. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
Him on such a bad Giants team this year.
Yeah, and you got to give him credit for the way he's played. No doubt about it. He's definitely on the short list of great Giants, nose tackles, especially over the last couple of decades. So definitely a lot of encouraging things you saw from him as he was dominating the offense, the line of scrimmage when he was out there. But, we talked about the defense a little bit there. We do got to shine a light on the offense that did see its struggles. Obviously, the New York Giants were the only team in the NFL that did not score 10-plus points in week 1. They didn't even score a touchdown. It was just 2 field goals. So you got to give them credit for, for at least getting those 2 field goals and getting themselves in position to score a couple with as bad as they were. But Daniel Jones, though, 22 of 42, 186 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Look, a lot of things have been said about Daniel Jones. Obviously, hearing how you've been talking about him, Dan, It seems like your patience might be nearing its end with Daniel Jones at this point. I know a lot of Giant fans are there. I mean, let's be honest. Daniel Jones got picked in 2020, 2019, I believe. And he was the number 6 overall pick that year. So Giant fans have been dealing with this guy for about 6 years now. It that is a long time to struggle with your quarterback at that point. Jet fans like myself want to talk about the struggles we had with Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson, and that was a 6-year period as well. But at least it was 3 years of Darnold and 3 years of Wilson, so it kind of shook it up a little bit, and you felt like a little bit more hopeful than you would be. Daniel Jones has been here for a long time, and it seems like he's only regressed. What do you think about that, Dan?
I just feel like he's gotten worse. He had that 1 year that was okay. We got to the playoffs, but then after that, it's just coming clear. This is not the answer. I think that there's definitely going to be a new quarter. We're definitely drafting a quarterback if things become a complete disaster this year.
Yeah, if things keep going the way that it looks like the offense at least is going right now. Because, let's be honest, too, the Giants weren't scoring 30 points a game 2 years ago when they made the playoffs. So, if the defense kicks it into gear and Brian Daboll figures out a way to keep Daniel Jones healthy and get this offense moving in a positive direction, it doesn't mean that, the Giants are that they're completely out of it yet, is what I'm saying. But if it does turn sour and it does turn that way, then I agree with you. The Giants are definitely going quarterback early on, especially if they have a top 10 pick. And Daniel Jones is on the hot seat right now. And one of the guys that's going to try to help him get off that hot seat is wide receiver Darius Slayton, who's been one of the more productive Giant wide receivers over the last couple of years. He was on the field today warming up, but still not practicing. He's in concussion protocol, but progressing. And Dan, the sooner they get this guy back out in the field, the better for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. The sooner he comes back, the better.
Because really, too, it's not obviously you need all the great players that you can have as possible, but it's even more evident for the Giants where you want to take attention away from Malik Neighbors, the Giants' number 6 overall pick this year. So the Giants don't want teams to double him. They're going to have 2 guys covering him at all times, kind of like teams did with Saquon Barkley the last couple of years, where they just wanted to eliminate him as an option for the Giants. But if you put Darius Slayton in that spot for the Giants now, suddenly teams have to pay attention to another guy. So it opens it up a little bit more for a guy like Neighbors, right?
Exactly. So that it's only going to make it a little easier on Daniel Jones if he has more people he could throw to. Might be able to mask that. It's still the issue is running back, especially with the loss of Barkley. We don't have that it just Daniel Jones doesn't seem to be able to be a guy that can make throughout the season.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Can't argue with that. And it looks like Vegas is already taking note of what's going on here right now. As when we turn our attention to week 2 for the New York Giants, they're already 2.5-point underdogs against the Washington Commanders. Now, I don't think, like, as a Giants fan, Dan, I don't think anybody really thinks that the Washington Commanders are going to be a great team this year or a playoff team or anything like that. They're not going to be the worst team in the league, most likely, but they're not going to make the playoffs. So, what does it tell you, or how does it make you feel as a Giants fan, knowing that you're going in as a road dog to a team that a lot of Giant fans probably thought they were better than coming into the season?
That just says a lot. It's not going to be good, and I just feel that it's just going to go south. If you lose to this team, then what the fuck? It's going to be a long season. Get the adjustment.
Well said. No, you're 100% right. What the fuck? If you can't go out there and look, you know what? Let's actually be fair to the Giants here, right? If they lose the game, that's one thing. Let's say the Giants lose 24-20, but it's an interesting game. The Giants are in it. They're moving the ball. and it's fun to watch. Okay, maybe they end up losing and they're 0-2 and it stinks, but at least you could see some good things in that. If they go out and end up losing a game like 27-10 or something like that, 31-3, if it's a blowout against them, that's when you even start wondering, the Giants season's in trouble, and maybe Brian Daboll is in trouble as the head coach. Even though I don't think he would deserve that, I think the GM, to try to save his ass, would put Brian Daboll in the hot seat right away if that happens. What do you think?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the last thing the Giants need is Daboll out there, because Daboll is a very good head coach. So yeah, that's a lot of big things on the horizon for the Giants. And to wrap up the show today, I do want to finish up with the New York Jets, who obviously, look, I know what a lot of people have said. And if you've watched this show over the last couple of years, you might be expecting me to come out and mother F the Jets and this and that. You've seen me get hot in the past when my team has let me down. But you know what, though? I'm pretty calm, cool, and collected after that tough loss. Sure, did the Jets take one on the chin? No doubt about it. The Jets definitely took one on the chin on Monday night in San Francisco. The Jets end up losing to the Niners on the first Monday Night Football game of the year, 32-19. It's a tough way to close out week one, tough way to open up the season for the New York Jets. But look, as soon as the Jets knew that they were going to be getting the 49ers week one anyway, you knew it was going to be a tough game. You're facing easily the best team in the NFC. And I said this on our Patreon show yesterday too, where it's just, they're probably top to bottom the best roster in football too. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs are the Super Bowl champions, and they're quote unquote the best team, no doubt about it. But really, let's be honest, they have a lot of really good players at the top, and Patrick Mahomes puts them over. If you go down the roster of the San Francisco 49ers, player for player, they got the deepest roster in the league, in my opinion. So look, the fact that the Jets end up losing to them, it's disappointing. There's a lot of, there was a lot of frustration to it, but then again, there was a lot of elation to it too, because the Aaron Rodgers stayed healthy. That's the first thing for a Jet fan has to wonder, and hearing him talk, hearing Aaron Rodgers talk about the offensive line and how he had a lot of time back there and the pass protection was really good. That encourages you, because that was not the case last year. And let's be honest, the Jets had a rough game at the line of scrimmage on Monday night, and the offensive line got pushed around a little bit by the Niners D-line, but they were still able to get the job done. Rodgers comes out 13 of 21, 167 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Obviously, I'm not going to even knock Rodgers for the pick, because that was just a weird fluky play where the pass was batted down and the guy was just able to really grab the ball out of midair. It was really acrobatic and insane. But Dan, as an unbiased Giants fan, what was your impression of the first full Jets game of Aaron Rodgers in the Aaron Rodgers era?
The Jets seem to they held up well against the Niners. Is not as bad as I would have thought. The other thing, I just feel like Aaron Rodgers just had a little bit of rust. Like, he hasn't played football with a lot of pressure on him, with all those eyes on him, especially with the Jets. That Jet fans are holding him to very high expectations. This is the first time he's gotten to do that. He only had 4 plays all last year, so he's still like. I feel this is the game he's kind of getting that rust off. Next week, I think he's going to be more in full force.
I agree. And also, too, just like you said, he's shaking the rust off against the best, maybe not the best defense in the NFL, but they're right up there. Fred Warner, their middle linebacker, is one of the best defensive players in football, bar none. So the Niners are probably a top 5 defense. So Rodgers came, baptism by fire, thrown right into the mix and looked pretty good in it. And let's also be honest, too. 13 of 21, 167 yards. That's not going to blow anybody away. But those really should have been his, or close to his, halftime numbers, because the Jets only possessed the ball. The Jets got blown out on the line of scrimmage. We were talking about it on yesterday's show. The time of possession was 38 minutes and 40 seconds for the San Francisco 49ers and 21 minutes and 20 seconds for the Jets. I mean, the Jets defense could not get off the field against the 49ers. There was third down conversion after third down conversion, big run after big run, and the Jets just couldn't stop it. And, I don't know what else they wanted Rodgers to do. He's trying to shake the rust off, and they're having the other team go out there and have 7-8 minute drives every time out. So Rodgers, this, by the way, in 225 career starts in the NFL, was the least amount of time an Aaron Rodgers-led team has ever possessed the ball for 21 minutes. And let's even add further stats into that those last couple of minutes that the Jets possessed the ball offensively, was at least a 4 or 5 minute drive, was by Tyrod Taylor, because they pulled Rodgers, which I agreed with at the end. The Jets were down 32-13. You don't want to risk Rodgers getting hurt in garbage time at the end of Monday Night Football. So they put Tyrod Taylor out there, and he led a pretty good scoring drive. But so realistically, the Jets only got about 16 or 17 offensive minutes out of Aaron Rodgers on Monday night. So let's pump the brakes. I know there was a lot of people that had a lot of crappy opinions about it. And look, if the Jets still look the same next week against the Tennessee Titans, that'll be a whole different conversation. But for right now, I'm still feeling pretty good about my Jets.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to feel good about your Jets going into next week.
Yeah. Now look, even too, Dan, we were talking about the performances. If I was going to point a finger at a guy that had a bad day too, it would probably be a guy like Breece Hall. Now, I'm not going to kill Breece Hall because he was amazing last year with no offensive line. And just because he came out and had a rough week 1 doesn't mean anything, really. Okay, he had a tough week. So rebound next week. That's football, baby. Go out there and get him. But 16 carries, 54 yards, and a really gut punch of a fumble early on. That's not what you expect from a guy that's supposed to be as great as Breece Hall. So just keep your fingers crossed that he stays healthy and is able to keep going in the right direction. Another guy I want to give a shout out to is Allen Lazard. Dan, he's alive. Me and you used to do that a lot last year with the Jets and the Giants. If they got a big win at any point in the year, we'd play the "It's Alive" bit. Well, Allen Lazard is alive, man, after having such a terrible first year as a Jet. 6 catches, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which, by the way, is more than he had all of last year. He only had 1 touchdown in 16 games last year, already 2 this season. So the Jets getting something out of Lazard this year is definitely a positive thing, right?
Exactly. I have to give a lot of credit to that, to Allen Lazard, everything. He had a great game. He had a great game, and it's a good one to build on.
Exactly. And one of Rodgers' buddies from Green Bay, who, it makes the most sense in the world that the first touchdown Aaron Rodgers threw as a Jet was to his old buddy Lazard from Green Bay on a 36-yard bomb down the field on a play where he got the Niners to jump. So it was one of those Rodgers free plays that now, by the way, he's thrown the most touchdowns on free plays in the history of the NFL. So love to see that. It totally made 100% sense in my head when I saw that. Now, talking about that from the offensive side, obviously on the defensive side, they had a little bit more struggles. And they got knocked around. They got punched in the mouth. And, we were saying this yesterday on our Patreon show on the post game. The Jets let Quentin Jefferson go. They let Bryce Huff sign with the Philadelphia Eagles. They traded John Franklin Myers, and then obviously they traded for Hassan Reddick. Reddick still, including today, has not reported yet. And how did the Jets not think that was going to be a problem? I could understand if the Jets locked up Reddick, had that done coming in and everything, I could understand feeling good and secure with the Jets defense, especially on the up front four. But when you let three guys like this go, how did you think that you were going to have the same explosive front four that you had all the last year or two, you know?
You got to do something quick. This guy is Joe Douglas is looking like an idiot. You should have known that this was going to happen with Reddick. You should have been willing to, if you were willing to do this trade, you should have been willing to pay the price. And it's backfiring big time. And if this goes for a whole year, he will look like one of the biggest asses of GMs in the history.
Well, you're right about that. The thing is, though, it's probably not going to go all year, because if Reddick holds out all year, then the Jets retain his rights and he won't become a free agent like Le'Veon Bell did when he held out, because the difference is Le'Veon Bell was franchise tagged and he never actually signed the franchise tag, meaning that contract was never, real. It was never, it was just imaginary because he never signed it. Now that's quite different, where the Jets have actually acquired the contract of Hassan Reddick, and he was due to making $14.5 million this year. Right now, that dollar amount is going to be a lot lower with all the fines that he's incurred so far, including the $800,000 game check that he sacrificed this past week for missing this game. So definitely a lot of fines piling up, but he has to report at some point this year, or the Jets retain his rights and he'll just be right back in the same situation next year. Now, the one weird thing about that is he has to report, I believe it is for the last 6 weeks of the year. He has to appear in 6 games. So technically, this could drag all the way out until week 10 or 11 if the Jets let it go that way. So let's just hope that Joe Douglas is smart enough to not let that happen. One thing I do want to give Douglas credit for, that I've been saying that I wanted this to happen for months, is the Jets signed their former starting center, who started for the last 3 or 4 years for them, Connor McGovern, to the practice squad. Now he's an addition. He's on the practice squad right now. He's a depth piece, and it just it makes sense that they're going to have him get ready. But Dan, you can never have too many offensive linemen, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, we're about to go to the bathroom, but I'll be back.
Okay, well, hurry up real quick. We're about to close it out, as we're basically done with the show. I'll take Dan out while he goes to use the bathroom. I guess he couldn't wait an extra couple of seconds. But just to wrap up on that, then you have the Jets signing Connor McGovern to the practice squad. Look, when you saw the struggles that their rookie, well, not rookie anymore, he's a second-year center, Joe Tippmann, had early on this season, especially with snapping the ball, I really thought that maybe bringing McGovern back in would be kind of like a safety blanket for him. Not that you would even think about starting McGovern over him at this point, but just to kind of, be that guiding hand that he had all of last year. So obviously McGovern, he's a serviceable depth piece that the Jets could definitely use to have out there. And with all the injuries they've had over the last few years, having a guy like Connor McGovern out there is definitely the way to go. You need as many guys backing up as possible. I know Wes Schweitzer is kind of banged up right now. He was supposed to be the backup center. He might even be on IR if I'm correct with that. I'm not 100% sure. But, Connor McGovern, who the Jets signed as a free agent, I believe it was in the 2020 season, to really help solidify their offensive line. Now, he did play pretty good at center. It's not his fault the rest of the line sucked. But Connor McGovern is probably an average center in football right now. So big shout out to him coming back. I'm a big fan of him. That's a pro's pro coming back into the locker room. Getting him on the practice squad is good in the first place. So pretty much what they're probably going to do is just build him up right now. The Jets also signed a kick returner as well. I forget the kid's name, but they signed a kick returner and placed him on the practice squad too. Now I don't really understand why they would have placed a kick returner on the practice squad after they had, Braden Codrington, who had a really good camp for the Jets. If you're not familiar, Codrington had a big kick return in the preseason. He looked really good at times. This was a kid that was an undrafted free agent, and the Jets brought him in, which the Jets have had a lot of luck with at points the last couple of years. And, you have Codrington, and then the Jets turn around right at the conclusion of training camp and trade this kid. Okay, look, it's not like you're trading, your best player to him, to them, but they traded Codrington to the Buffalo Bills. Now, I hope I'm not right about this, but I expect at some point this year, Codrington to have a big play and a big return against the Jets. I hope that's not the case, but it definitely seems to be the case as we are rejoined by Daniel Bobo Curlin, a refreshed Daniel Bobo Curlin. And, as just to wrap up right there and keep it going, Dan, now the Jets have a big game on their hands next week, too. They're playing Tennessee, like we mentioned earlier. The Jets, however, are 3.5-point road favorites. I can't tell you the last time I saw the Jets as road favorites. So it's a really good and odd feeling to see them be the favorites. And, what do you think, Dan? I think we better see a much better version of this New York Jets team, or there's going to be hell to pay.
Well, I feel like this one could be a feel-good win for the Jets. I just feel like they're just gonna have they're just gonna have a great game. I feel like it should be an easy win for the Jets. All things point to that, but it's kind of, you never know until this game happens, and hopefully it happens. Otherwise, I might have to have the medics on standby either way, because it's the Jets. I need to have the medics on standby for you.
I appreciate it. And if they manage to lose to the Titans on Sunday, you're damn right I'm going to need the medics. As you said an easy win. Nothing's ever easy for the Jets, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's a really good game. The Jets come out on top, and that's about going to do it for us this week, Dan. Before we get out of here, though, one more thing I did want to touch on is, believe it or not, hockey is back as the New York Rangers rookie camp opens this week. Dan, I can't believe that hockey is back already right now. But, training camp is just a couple of days away. And before you know it, we're going to be right back in the regular season.
Exactly. It's just hard to believe. It seems like yesterday I nearly destroyed a TV after losing the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, it's true. So hopefully all the TVs are safe around us now, as we still got quite a little bit of time before the Eastern Conference Finals in 2025, which hopefully our New York Rangers are a part of. But that's going to do it for us today on the Best Seat in the House podcast. Before we get out of here, Dan, do you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Twitter account Bubble103NYC. You can follow me on there. Instagram Bubble7118DK. That's also my username on Threads. YouTube's one word Daniel Curlin. Also, Patreon subscribers get 2 weeks early access to my YouTube videos whenever I post stuff. Also, don't forget Bubbles Tracks I Minute. You also Patreon subscribers get access to. That's everything you get access to. So definitely subscribe. It's only $5, less than almost a cost to ride the subway, round trip on the subway. Bucks.
That's right, Dan. Yeah, that's right. And just like you said, it's just basically a subway ride. Patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. We appreciate everybody that's already taken the plunge and helped support us, and anybody that's even thinking about it. Thank you very much for your support. So that's going to do it for us this week on the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer. You can check me out at my last name, Cramer NY. Don't forget the show on X, Best Seat in the House podcast, BSIT_podcast, Best Seat in the House podcast on Instagram as well. So Like I said, I'm Rob Kramer. This is my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin, and we'll catch you next week on Best Seat in the House podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yeah, that was